I called my mum and I burst into tears. I won't pretend.
And now you're BAFTA nominated.
I feel like I have made a small contribution to a long history of people trying to work on this. I'm by no means the first person to talk about it, but it feels like the tide has changed a bit.
Fola Evans-Akingbola is a British actress, model and filmmaker. She most famously plays Maddie Bishop in freeform TV series Siren. She was born in London, and her parents are British Nigerian. She attended the UK's National Youth Theatre and the famous Identity School of Acting. Since entering into the industry, Fola has gone on to work on internationally acclaimed shows such as Game of Thrones and Death in Paradise, and her work behind the camera has gained her an acclaimed BAFTA nomination. She's just recently finished filming on a movie with Hollywood A-listers. Listen on to find out who.
That was my first time working with people at that level, and amazing, professional. Both of them, when they walked into the table, really shook hands with every single person around the table. They didn't have to do that.
All right, welcome to the WeAudition Show. We're here with Fola Evans-Akingbola. How are you doing?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be here. Honoured to be part of the WeAudition family.
We're so honoured to have you here because, you know, we've seen your career personally rising, and I'm really excited for you at where you are right now. What are you excited for right now?
Oh, thank you. I mean, the truth is I'm excited for the fact that I'm getting married this summer, but that's not industry talk. But that's like...
Well, that's okay. No, that's okay. Though. I think that is industry talk, actually, because, yeah, firstly, congratulations to you and your wonderful husband-to-be, who I know a lot about as well. And he's also in the biz, right?
Yeah.
So, and, you know, I think what I was going to say, that is really part of it, because actually I'm a strong believer in we have to have human experiences to play humans on screen, right? And some actors, they have a one-track mind of just focus on the work, and they miss out vacations, they miss out, you know, relationships, and they go, oh, I'm not going to do that. Has your relationship brought you any new insight to your work as an actor?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like funny enough, I was just speaking to a friend about this earlier today, about this idea that you have to kind of like focus on one thing, get that sorted, and then have the life and the relationship. And it's like, that's not how life works. And I was so fortunate to meet my boyfriend. I was 22.
Fiance.
Yes,
you have to say that
now. Fiance.
On a job, right?
Fiance sounds very zhuzh. Yeah, we met on a job. We met on a show called Siren, and navigating this like fabulous but crazy like career that we all have has just been made so much more fun and manageable with having each other as like a support. And also, like you said, Darren, it's like you also, as an actor, I've got that like terrible actor brain where certain things happen in life, and there's a part of your brain that goes, remember this feeling. This is what intense loss feels like, or love feels like, or, you know, like you said, you have to go through things and live life. You can't just have like acting as the sole focus and not experiencing like all there is in life. Otherwise, what are you bringing to your like work and your characters?
And now you're BAFTA nominated.
So surreal, honestly. When was that announcement? That was in like March.
Yeah, it was accompanied with a video of you looking very, very A-list, I must say. They did a big nomination for you, didn't they?
Thank you. That was fun. I must say, I've had to learn to embrace the glossy bubblegum aspect of our industry. Like that stuff. And there's a part of me that finds it like super. When I post it, I'm like, is this super cringe? And I'm kind of like, it is cringe, but it's okay. I feel like it's okay to enjoy the like get ready and have fun and celebrate what everyone has achieved. And it's okay if you want to ask where my dress is from. Like, I love all of that. You know,
for anyone that's not quite there yet, but is, you know, a lot of our listeners will be on their way or nearly there. What's it like? You know, tell us the process of when you find out because you, just to give the viewers a recap, your documentary was nominated for Best Documentary, right?
So the doc that I co-directed, me and the other co-director, Jordan Pitt, we were nominated for Emerging Talent, Best Director, Emerging Talent.
Best Director. And Jordan obviously attended our party in Cannes recently. So we got to, you know, share some photos of him there. So when you get that announcement, like talk us through, like, because Richard's been to the BAFTAs, haven't you?
Oh yeah, go on, Richard. You go first. I want to hear yours.
I've got a very different experience actually. I joined BAFTA a long time ago, before it was the organisation that it is now. I joined through. I did a feature film when I was about 19. It was a long time ago now. I was doing quite well in my career, and I knew about this club, and I used to travel up to London, and someone, it was kind of a family friend, introduced me and said, "Oh, would you like to come and I'll nominate you, and you can come to my club, and when you do auditions, you can we can read through stuff before you do your auditions, and you can sit in the bar." And it really was an old man's club. It genuinely was. And so I joined this organisation. I had to be approved, and the board had to talk to me, and all the rest of it. Long time ago, it was different. It's different now. And so I joined this organisation called BAFTA, and I was very chuffed to be part of that. And I was asked to be, a voter, and I vote on the awards, and I still do that. But I've seen BAFTA grow from what was a old man's club, essentially back then, to the massive institution that it is now. It's a charity. It does loads of other work. They've completely revolutionised 195 Piccadilly, which is where it's based in London. And it moved from being after the Oscars, a few awards, to being before the Oscars, and then Golden Globes, BAFTAs, Oscars. And that really took it. It was sponsored by Orange when that happened. And they got a lot of money and did it really, really well. It's a privilege to be still voting for it. So I vote on the films every year. So I see it from a completely different point of view. I get the tapes at screen as I watch them, and I vote. Completely different. And I've been 4 or 5 times to the awards, and we sit up the top. The members sit up the top, not in the glamorous bit with all the nominees down the bottom. Sort of look on. And in the dinner, we sit on the top and we sort of look on. But very, very different experience from what I presume you've experienced as a nominee. Tell me about that. How does that feel?
Yes, my experience was that it was a lot like we were encouraged to apply for the emerging talent category. And we kind of collectively were like, you got to be in it to win it. Like, just shoot your shot. Probably never going to happen. But hey, go for it. So I knew that we were in, like, we'd submitted. And then, funnily enough, my uncle Jimmy, I was on a FaceTime to him, and he was like, "Oh, someone mentioned that you might be on like a long list for a BAFTA thing," and I was like, "What?" Like, even just being told maybe on the long list, I was like, "Oh!" I called my mum and dad, and I was like, "I don't know why I'm getting excited, because it's not a nomination yet, and I don't even know if it's true, but I might be on the long list for a BAFTA thing." I don't know how people, like, I'm not even going to pretend that I was cool about it. I was really excited and like nervous, and
I love hearing that though.
Yeah, I wasn't.
You don't have to be cool about it. You don't have to be cool about it.
And to be clear, like, for sure, we didn't make the documentary with this in mind. We didn't make it for this. We made it because we wanted to say something about Afro hair on set. So that was what it was about, and we achieved that, and I'm really proud of that. But so we felt internally validated already, but this external validation, it was important. It was meaningful to me, and it felt like a really like exciting like thing to be acknowledged by your peers in that way. So anyway, I knew that the nomination announcements were coming on I think it was like the 20th of March or whatever it was. And I knew they were coming at midday. My body woke me up at like 7 a.m. that morning.
Like Christmas morning.
Adrenaline.
But I had so many more hours to go. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym. I tried to do like the longest workout. But yeah, I won't lie to you. I was like nervous. I was really excited and nervous. I don't know why I was nervous, because it's like, I think if we hadn't have been nominated, life goes on. It's fine. That's not why we did it. But I think it's because it was a real passion project for me. It was something really close to my heart. It was self-funded. It was a long journey. I just think it represented, like, it was a culmination of like a lot of hard work, and also it being a topic that was somewhat like, it wasn't easy, I think, for the industry to hear. It's a topic that in some ways we were, I wouldn't say critiquing the industry, but it was an invitation to the industry to go on a learning journey about Afro hair, because historically it's not been properly taken care of on set. So So I think the fact that we then did get the nomination, that felt really encouraging. So anyway, I go onto the site at 12 midday, and I think our category is quite long on the scroll. So I was scrolling. And then I saw our names, and I actually did burst into tears. I called my mum and I burst into tears. I won't pretend.
Well
That's
done,
awesome. And the thing is, when you said about, it shouldn't be about that or whatever, actually, I think with a documentary like what you've done, which is a documentary effort for the industry that you're working in, it's creating knowledge and exposure. And so actually an award is important because it puts it to a wider audience and creates more impact, right? It's not just about like, hey, look how cool I am as an actor in this role where I'm running around the place shooting a gun or whatever. It's literally the exposure, it elevates it to make lasting change. And I think you've seen actual physical changes on set with this, haven't you, since the documentary release?
Yeah, I think what I'm really happy with is that I feel like I have made a small contribution to a long history of people trying to work on this. I'm by no means the first person to talk about it, and I probably won't be the last, but it does feels like the tide has changed a bit with this topic of Afro hair on set. It feels like a lot of Time's Up UK have just turned their attention. That's going to be their next focus is Black equity on set, specifically hair and makeup equity. There's an organization called Hair and Makeup Equality Now that have been doing work, and the two founders were in the documentary. So I feel like I hope to be a small part of the solution, rather than years I'd been on sets and felt like I was coming home and ranting and raving and complaining about what was happening with my hair and not doing anything about it. And so I was just happy that this doc is contributing, hopefully, towards moving things forward,
I want people to watch the documentary, but can you summarize what the problem is that you were talking about for anybody that doesn't understand what the issue is?
Yeah, sure. So the documentary is called Untold Stories, Hair on Set. And it's an exploration of the fact that there's historically, and still is, a huge knowledge gap in our industry about how to work with curly and textured hair and Afro textured hair. And so what that means is for how it's meant to work for actors is that you come onto set and there's an entire department, hair and makeup department, that is meant to do your hair and makeup. And they're amazing and they're wonderful artists creatively, and you're creating a character. The hair is such an important part of the character. But historically, because there's a knowledge gap about how to work with Afro hair, there's too many instances in which actors are coming onto set and their hair is either getting damaged, or it's not being done properly, or it's not being done at all. And it's a huge shame, because it means that it's also like you're missing out on that creative opportunity to create a hairstyle for your character on the one end. And on the other end, I've spoken to people who've lost their hair, had damage to their scalp, like really bad things happening. And then, of course, there's a racial component to it in terms of just how we're all dealing with this sort of elephant in the room of why does it seem to affect people that only look a certain way. So we wanted to explore that, but I love our industry and I plan to be a part of it for a very long time. So my aim was to really go about it in a way that was like, this is an invitation to go on a learning journey about our hair. It's not an attack. We're not pulling punches in terms of what's been happening, but it's not an attack, and it's not like trying to make people feel bad. It's about how can we move forward and hopefully make sure that this doesn't happen forever.
Education, really. Yeah. Thank you for doing that. Actually,
thank you.
On behalf of all of our members around the world, I'm sure there will be people listening to this that will be seeing the benefits of what you've done there. So
hopefully one day.
That's awesome.
And it's interesting that you've done that for the right reasons as part of the industry, but actually that's managed to make you have recognition actually in some of the areas that you might have had recognition as an actor. But that's interesting that's come from your acting experience, and then you've come around to the awards season and then been recognized for something that you've done not as an actor, because sometimes it's an aspiration, isn't it? The Oscars and the BAFTAs are aspirational to actors. A lot of people think one day maybe that could be me, and they've served a purpose to for a lot of people, inspire. And you're doing that by not acting, by producing something. And it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Did you find the sort of like being in the room for the awards? Did you find that any relationships were benefiting from that for you, for your acting career going forward? Did you meet people that you might be working with in the future? Or is it just about sitting there and being recognized? How do you work a room like that?
I mean, you know me, Darren. I feel like I could always take lessons in how to work a room better. I think I have to be encouraged to it's easy for me to just sort of like sit and be like,
stand in the corner.
Yeah. But I think I really took it as an opportunity. What was great is the energy it was a really celebratory energy, and it wasn't a standoffish energy. People were really open. So like I got to go and say hello to Lenny Henry, and he was really like just really warm and encouraging, and got to connect with some casting directors. But again, it wasn't like there was an agenda. And I think that's the thing that I'm realizing with, quote unquote networking. It's not really, a better word would just be like connecting with other people, that everyone in the industry we're all just humans. We're all just people. Like no one's better than anyone else. And I think as soon as you get rid of that idea that anyone's like out of reach, out of touch, it allows you to just be interested and curious about other people and have a just normal conversation with them. And that's how you kind of connect to them. So I feel like that's a good way, or that's certainly how I approach being in those rooms that can be a bit intimidating, is just like, I just try to be curious about like, what's going on for this person, and ask them questions rather than like trying to pitch myself or anything like that. Just if in doubt, it's kind of like acting, the Meisner technique. They say like, put your attention on something outside of yourself, your attention on another actor. I feel like that's true in life. If you're just like, even if you're at like a dinner party and everyone's feeling a bit socially anxious, like the cure is always to just be curious and ask someone a great question, and it'll open them up,
You're so right, because yeah, absolutely. We host a lot of events around the world, and as the hosts of that, when you're at that party, our kind of job is to speak to as many people as possible, and make them feel welcome. And I find that the easiest thing to do is ask them something about themselves, not deliberately repeat it back to them, but repeat some of the stuff back in your answer so they feel heard and validated, and then find someone to connect them with. And that's sort of how because in these events, I have to have short conversations. Otherwise I'll spend all night talking to one person. And the easiest way is to be curious, like you say, and then use that to be like, you know what, you should speak to this person because, and then
very
connect
good
them.
at that. That is Darren's forte.
Yeah, he is good
you
at
are
that.
absolutely brilliant at it. And I think that's part of the success of WeAudition, that you've been able to do that and connect people.
I mean, thank you. And I mean, the whole community is about connection and community, isn't it? But also for getting to the point of that, for me, why I'm good at it is because like you say, I'm genuinely interested. I love people and their stories and different things. And it's like, we've all got stuff to learn from each other as well. And it's really wonderful. And then the next thing I would have to say to that, based upon your experience recently, is you're at a level where those people that you're meeting, they're your peers. They've seen you on big shows like Call My Agent. They've seen you on The Night Agent. I don't know how many more shows you're going to make with agent in the title, but they've seen you on everything with an agent. And so when they're having those conversations, there's an awareness of your work and respect for you as an artist, I think, which makes those conversations easier. And I think people only understand that over time. You've got to put the work in. And then it is easier, actually, because, I just went for a couple of meetings with agents and casting directors here today. And it's because it's easy because I've been in the business for ages. It's not like me going, oh, hey, will you meet with me? It's just having that self-respect to know that we're all trying to do this as a team, right?
Have you always had that kind of self-confidence to do that? Or has that grown?
No, it's grown. You know what really helps that happen is, and I don't think you can be there before you're there. It's when you hear a lot of the times the best word is to say no to something and then everyone wants you, right? It's not saying no, I don't think. It's having the comfortability that you don't need it, and you can't fake that. It's I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts is Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. I forget who his guest was, but they were talking about doing things with or without you energy. I'm doing this with or without you. Do you want to jump on the ride? Versus, I need you to do this for me, or I need you to help me. I'm doing this. I've got this idea. Are you part of it? And if you're not, that's cool. That's cool. It's not going to affect me, but it'll be helpful if you are. Same as this podcast. You know, we love the fact you're on there, on here with us, and all of our guests. But this is happening. If somebody says no, we can't be on the podcast, that's fine. We'll get someone else, right? And the people that understand that, we come on and we create some magic, hopefully, and some good stuff for people. You know?
Yeah, that's amazing. What about you, Richard? Do you find that that what we're talking about, like, is that something that comes easy to you?
It comes less easy to me, I must admit. I find that quite difficult sometimes because I just sit and work on a project and just do that on my own probably all the time. And I'm quite happy to do that work. I love being on the set. I love being on the set. I love that feeling of, having done good work in the day. And otherwise, as actors, I think we're quite often there's one other thing to do. There's one other headshot to send. There's one other email you could send. And there's always stuff, social media posts and all that sort of thing. How has it been for you when you've done some really big projects? Is it getting easier for you, Fola? Like, is it getting easier as you do bigger projects and more, to learn the lines, all those things, all the hard work?
I feel like
does it feel different?
There's some aspects that definitely get easier in terms of like, once you've been on a set enough, then you understand how a set works, even though every set is different, but somewhat you understand how a set works. So there's certain things that aren't going to throw you off or make you feel like, oh my gosh, how does this work? Like that's certainly easier. But I also feel like I know this is a bit of a cliche, but every job is different and every job has its own kind of, I do get that thing of like, oh, do I know how to do this? I was in New York last week, and my day on set, I really felt like I wasn't listening to the other actor. I felt like I was really rusty. And maybe that's actually because I am rusty because of the strike and I hadn't been on set for a while. And so I felt like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling a bit nervous. And I mean, I always feel nervous, but so even to answer your question, yeah, like I feel like I always feel nervous. I think what is definitely easier is when you're getting to do something for a long amount of time. I feel like I get into a rhythm.
Because you're on Siren for 3 seasons, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then Night Agent, how long was that?
Night Agent, we did season 1. Season 2 is shooting now. But I don't know if I can. Well, what I'm learning is that it's actually, I'm really understanding the respect of how hard it is to come in for one day on something compared to being there from the start of the project to the end. You know everyone, you know the crew, you did it, versus coming in for one day. I think there's something really challenging about that has its own set of like things, because you've just got to come in, execute, and go. Like no one.
Was that the New York job? Was that one day one?
Yeah.
Can you say what that's for or not?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, but so that was just an episode of something where you come in, and that's how most actors will start, is on a co-star or a guest star. Which obviously you did that back in the day before you started doing series regulars. Do you have any advice now, looking back, to young Fola or somebody like you just about to do their first co-star? Like what do they expect, and how do they navigate that?
I think my advice would be, and I think I actually have to still tell myself this now, because I did a small role in the new Jamie Foxx Cameron Diaz film that's coming out at the end of this year, which was
clang. You just dropped us some big names there.
And honestly, I was literally like, I was totally fangirling, and it was a dream to play anything on that. But the reason I bring that up is because, it was a lovely role, great role, but small role. And, it's not about me. It's about Jamie and Cameron. Like they're the stars, obviously. And I was having those kind of like, oh my gosh, am I doing it right? And, all the actor doubt feelings that you have when you're kind of just coming in and coming out. And I had to sort of remind myself of, I auditioned, the directors see me, they've hired me, they're trusting me to come in and do my job. And if they're not, if the director's not coming over and giving me loads of notes, that doesn't mean I'm not doing a good job. It means he trusts me to do my job. He's a professional. He'll come and tell me if he needs me to do something different. Sometimes as an actor, I think if you're not getting certain interactions, you might go into like, oh, maybe they don't think this or do it. It's like, they'll tell you if they need you to invest. And so I feel like my advice would just be to like, trust yourself that you audition, they've hired you, and go in and do your thing, and trust that they will adjust and give direction if they need you to change. And those directions doesn't mean you're doing something bad. It just means they want something different. You're just playing and not caught up in the spiral of like overthinking what anything means,
It's so interesting how we as actors overthink everything in that sense. And, you've got to be prepared and you've got to do your job well. But you've also got to remember that it's not an easy decision for anyone. There's no like one person deciding. Somebody doesn't flippantly be like, oh, let's get Richard in for this. That'll do. Right. There's a load of people deciding that. So you should have that confidence when you're booked that they want you. I mean, there's a bunch of people that had to sign off on this.
Yeah.
Sometimes even the advertisers or the people paying for the networks, that it goes into so many places, and that in itself should give the actor some confidence that a lot of people had to say yes. A lot of people, like a jury, a lot of people agreed that you were good enough.
I suppose when you're doing one day, the worry is if you mess up on one day, you've 100% messed up. But if you're a series regular and you've already done 60 and you mess up on one day, well, the percentage chance of you messing up is only like, 3-4% of that one day. So it doesn't matter so much.
I love that, Richard. Next time I get a one-day job, I'm going to ask for that in my contract. Be like, it should be 7 days just so I can
mess up. That won't matter.
I want mess up contingency. Yeah.
So you've got more like, you're going to have more screen time. So a one slightly off scene, you've got the rest of the show to improve.
Yeah.
You're saying it's actually easier to be a series regular. You actually find it easier as an actor to sort of fill into that role and do the work.
Yes, energy wise, sure, you're going to be more tired doing 6 months of shooting, but in terms of like, the one day thing, it's like you really have got one shot. Yeah. You've got to deliver between that action and cut. And also even quite practically in that you probably won't get given as many takes either.
No. Yeah.
Whereas number 1, 2, 3, 4, they're probably going to give a little bit more leeway on how many takes they're going to get. Whereas if the day is running late and you're number 99 on the call sheet, 1, 2 takes max. Okay, we're moving on.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you'd like to join the WeAudition community, go to weaudition.com/show to get 25% off. Now back to the show.
So as a series regular, do you find, because the directors change each episode on a lot of TV shows, and I know when I've done an episode opposite one of the series regulars, often they know more about the show than the director does, and they sort of are guiding the ship a little bit. Do you find that you got to do that in a positive way? Be there to be the glue on a set, and is that a responsibility or is that just a benefit?
I think my honest answer is that I've more witnessed number ones doing that, and I it's not that I can't. Sorry, number ones being the lead on the show. I've seen that, and I find it very interesting because I've seen different examples of how people do it. That I think there's good ways to do it and bad ways to do it. And I think it's not that I couldn't. I think I've just noticed that I haven't stepped into that necessarily. I'm quite, unless there's something that I really disagree with, I kind of just take the script and I'll come in and like do what I need to do. Like I don't necessarily. Whereas I've seen certain like leads, they much more get into the conversation of no, I think it should be going in this direction and why is this happening? So it's something that. I don't know why I kind of lean away from it. I think it's also because I really respect what the writers have done. So I sometimes feel like what we were joking about at the beginning of like staying in your lane of I'm here to do my job. But I don't think that's necessarily the right thing, because I think a great lead does it really well. They know how to really collaborate with the writers and the new directors to make sure everyone's on the same page. But like on Siren, we had different director, but each episode, but we also had like a PD, a producing director, whose job it was to make sure that all the directors were kind of staying in the same world. And so we really trusted that PD. Like one of the seasons, it was Nick Copus, who's wonderful. He's now PDing Bel Air.
What does PD stand for anyone who doesn't know? Producing
director. Yeah. So they will direct at least one or two of the episodes, but then they're also going to oversee the overall like look and feel for all the other directors that are coming in. And so that relationship, I think I more had it with the producing director. Like at the beginning of the season, we'll have that conversation.
That's nice.
Is that also a showrunner, or do they report to the showrunner?
They report to the showrunner. So there's showrunner and then producing director, and then all the other directors that come in.
You do one and last one, don't they? But from maybe different, but from what I have experienced, they do the first episode and the last episode of a block.
Yeah, often, yeah.
To keep it tight.
There's a similar thing I found, actually. I did a series regular on Hollyoaks in the UK for a bit, and it was very apparent which directors worked in different ways. And there was some directors that did it was all single camera work, but some were very meticulous and very much to time. But one particular director I remembered would always run over, and that particular person was an actor previously, and they were very into their actors and they were very happy about that, but they didn't necessarily do the technical aspects of the directing very well. So you always got to the end of the day, and if you ever had that on your sheet where you had that director at the end of the day, you knew full well it was a wide and you had to run the scene. So you acted, there was no close-ups. You knew you could be big. You knew that was just a wide. They were going to bang out that scene quick. Right. So if you didn't know that, you might be like, I'm going to wait for my close-up, or I'm going to act it in this, I'm going to get this minutia. But I was well aware, and that happened a few times when I had that at the end of the day. You're like, there's going to be no nuance in this. I'm going to make sure I hit my lines. That's it. It's just going to be, if we get it down, and they didn't do overtime generally. It was like, you get it down, or that's it. Whatever comes out, that's what.
Well, you didn't no overtime in England, right? As part of your
there was occasionally, but you knew, you had the beginning of the day. Oh my God, that director was the best director. You did so much work. It was brilliant.
Fola, can you talk to us about the Siren audition? I remember you coming out to LA on a whirlwind trip.
Yes, I love this actually, because I think it is.
I love it.
It's quite.
So you were in the UK and you went to LA for the audition.
Yeah, so I did the self tape with my friend at my mum's house. Did the tape quite quickly. I think it was the next week. They were like, they're testing you. They want to test you. They're going to fly you. And this was it was early days. So I was like, they're going to fly you to LA, which in itself was like, oh my God, this is so cool. They're flying me to LA. So they flew me to LA for the test, and I was put up in a hotel, and the test was me and two other lovely actresses. We had to sign I signed the contract before you go in. So even that is messing with your brain, thinking of, look at the money that I might make.
Well, because they put they put three people on the deals, don't they? Because they want to know that if they pick you, that's it, it's done. Yeah, right? They don't want to have that fuss afterwards.
Yeah, get the offer and then try to, you want me now? We want more money.
Yeah.
So, and I remember, so the lead, Alex, wonderful guy, he's also a Brit. So I felt like, it was a chemistry test. So I felt like we'd really connected. And I was really happy with what I did. If I'm really honest with you, I kind of walked out of there like, I think I got it. I think I got this. And it was still, obviously it was in the room. It's not now with Zoom auditions. It was in the room. So there was probably at least 10 people in the audience, 10 execs in the audience. And we finished the test. Funnily enough, one of the actresses was like, should we all go and get food? And I was like, no, but yes, okay. So we all ended up going to get food. But it was really awkward because we were all at this Mexican restaurant with our phones on the table, kind of waiting for our management to call to say if we'd got it. So it was sort of this slightly bizarre experience. Anyway, the next day, my phone rings, manager calls. I'm like, she's like, honey, they went with the other girl. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, okay, I really thought I left it all in the room. Like, I really felt like I gave it my all. Like, what did they say? And I think I can't remember if she told me this at that point, but I think she said it was something about like the character's like ability to kind of fly off the handle and be a bit unruly that they liked in the other girl or something like this. And then my flight back to London was meant to be maybe the next day or something, but a friend of mine in LA, or Peaches, Darren, said, just stay for an extra week. Like, just make the most of it. You're here in LA, and I'll always love her for this. Actually, I really will, because she picked me up from the hotel and like looked after me that week and really was like, just make the most of it. Be here. I think we watched the Oscars together in her flat, in her apartment, and she really like picked up my energy. And actually, that week, sorry, this is such a long-winded story. That week, I got to audition for Spike Lee, not for him, but for his project. Like, got a call back for it, auditioned for Star Trek. Like, I really made the most of the week. It was good to not go home with my tail between my legs. 2 days before.
That was your agents and managers jumping on those meetings for you, was it?
Yes.
From the UK.
Wow.
Yeah, and my US manager. So, and then sort of towards the end of that week extension, my manager calls and is like, honey, you need to go back to the Freeform casting offices. They're thinking of firing the girl that they gave it to. And they know that you're still in LA. Go. You need to show them that you can like do anger and fly off the handle. Go and get it. And I was like, what? Okay. So I went, I did it. Anyway, long story short,
you're so nice. How did you do it? You're so nice.
I'm not going back to the office.
No way. I'm going to. Oh, sorry, not to you. No, to them. No, to them. Oh, okay.
And so then, I booked it. And to give you the behind the scenes of what was happening in Vancouver, which I think is important for actors to know, the actress that originally booked it was really unprofessional in the table read. I have not said her name, so I think it's fine that I'm saying this. She was really unprofessional in the table read. It was ultimately it was a Disney show, right? She was swearing, from what I've been told. She was like swearing unnecessarily in the table read, was maybe high potentially. Like, people were like, what is going on with this person? She was really unprofessional, and it cost her the job. And I have no problem being sloppy seconds, because it is what it is. But
we've all done it, Fola. We've all done it.
Exactly. Gladly. But I think it's really important for people to know that it does matter. Like, your professionalism, like, this is a job, and we should be professionals. And also, I believe that before they definitely fired her, they called around past employers, my understanding of what happened, to double check on, just take references basically. And it wasn't good, the answers they got back. And so she got dropped from the job. And so I feel like that was an important lesson for me it was an important lesson in so many ways. I think it was an important lesson in like just trying to make the most of things, which was me staying in LA, so that I could quickly go back in and, but also it was seeing what happened to her. There was an important lesson in like, don't get it twisted. Like, it's a job, be professional. We're not above anyone. You can't come in and like, I don't know, just act unprofessional ultimately, because there's a million people who want the job that you've got.
It's never too late to get fired by the sound of it. It's never too late. I mean, that would have cost them a lot of effort and money and worry and heartache. And those producers must have been really tearing their hair out to make a decision like that.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. The takeaways I was getting from this is that there's a couple of really clear things there. There's that phrase, 90% of the job is showing up, right? And in that sense, you being in LA was showing up, you staying that extra week is just being in the mix, right? And that's not to say that everyone needs to be in LA or whatever. Showing up in general, being in the mix of whatever you're doing and being ready. And then the second thing is, I think you went straight to Vancouver, didn't you?
Yeah.
And didn't even go home, didn't you?
Darren,
we had brunch. And you said, I'm going to Vancouver. Yeah.
I think you took me to birthday breakfast. That was my 22nd birthday or 23rd or something. And then
and you told me, and you're like, and I got you a T-shirt that I think you wore on the plane because you had no other clothes. You'd only packed for 2 days.
Literally.
So wait. The second thing, the bit of advice is always have some extra clothes in your hand luggage. And then the third thing I was thinking was this whole thing about being ready, but then the professionalism aspect. It just makes me think of when people get a little bit too much ego. I speak to a lot of actors that are unconfident, and equally I speak to some that are overconfident, and they think that their talent is all that matters and they can behave however they want. And actually, when you start to know production and producers and directors and everything, you think, you know what it is everyone does this for a living at that level. That's their job. And they don't want to be on set with somebody that's going to cause them problems. But the person that has the ego thinks, well, I'm the right person for it. But the truth is there's 5 right people. There's probably even 20 right people. You're never really just the right one. You're one of the right ones. And so these other things matter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've never understood when people, like, how that works when people lose touch with the fact that it's like a job, and so it's an amazing job if you love it and you want to be an actor. Of course, it's amazing to get to do what we do, but it's still like a job that you should be professional. There's other human beings. It's a collaboration. If the gaffers and the best boy weren't on the set, is it like if the electrical teams or any of the other departments weren't on the set, there wouldn't be a movie. So no department is more important than the other. Of course, there's captains that steer the ship, being like the directors and the execs, but everyone is important. And I think you can see when people have lost sight of that. And
what do you think it is? Is it the big amount of money that is that a factor when they see that paycheck? They're like, right, I'm important, or what? What do you think it is?
Honestly, I don't know. I think people I think maybe because the actors are in front of the camera. You know what it is? I think some of it is because on set as an actor, you do get treated in a certain way.
Yeah.
For example, the PA might come and ask, would you like a cup of tea? I'll go and get you a cup of tea. Bring you a cup of tea. Or if you step out of your trailer and it's raining, they're ready with an umbrella. And I think the mistake people make is they interpret that as I'm special. They're doing this because I'm special. That's the wrong interpretation.
They're doing it so your hair doesn't get wet, so you have to spend 3 hours in makeup again.
Exactly, because your hair doesn't get wet and your costume doesn't get wet. And they're going to go and get you the cup of tea because they need to know where you are at all times and don't want you wandering around crafty services getting a cup of tea because they need to be able to like, oh yeah, Fola's in the green room. She's coming to set right now. That's why that's happening. It's not because you're a magically special person. It's that everyone has a role on the set. Our role is to be this character. People have worked hard on the costume. So if we are like, we don't care about the rain, and that messes up costume. Yeah. So I think people interpret certain behaviors wrong. Like certain things of how sets work, they interpret it wrong. Even like actors get to skip to the front of the line to get their lunch first. It's not because we're special. It's because we need to have finished our lunch in time to go back into hair and makeup in time to get reprocessed before set. Do you see what I mean? I think you have to do all of that.
And it feels like it's like you say, it's the more special thing that's coming on, but they've got to have eyes on you at all time. And I guess, a good bit of advice for any actors out there is understand that, and, make sure your PA or your AD knows where you are. If you are, running to the toilet, you got to tell someone.
It does feel a bit weird first time you do that, doesn't it? I always remember like doing that for the first time, and then it's like, oh, I've got to tell someone what I'm doing and what I'm doing. But now it just sort of is natural. You just
say 10-1.
Do it.
10-1.
You just, and you don't need to almost ask. You just say, and then an appropriate time to do it. And then that takes a little bit of experience to know that actually I'm not in this scene and there's a 10-minute turnaround, so you can go to the loo and no one cares.
Right. And it's interesting, Rich, you say that with the experience, then you start to understand those moments, like you say, and instead of when you're first on a set, you asking, oh, hey, can I go to the toilet? When you're experienced, you know that scene's turning around. You go, I'm just popping to the loo. That's where I'll be.
Also, you can take
a different level of confidence.
I'm going to be there for an hour and a half in a minute. I'm going to take a tactical now.
Tactical.
No, be fine.
Yeah. And that's all about understanding your environment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. So Fola, how do you learn your lines?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, obviously some scripts, it's easier than others. When it's so well written, it's like it just goes in by osmosis, doesn't it? It's so weird.
Yeah. If it's really well written, it does. You can do 9-10 pages and go, oh, wait, because it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, of course I say this next. I think, what I try to do, I don't always succeed with this, especially with auditions. Sometimes I jump to learning the lines too quickly. But what I notice is like with an audition, if I make sure that I'm just like doing the scene work first, it's almost like I've half learned the lines and then I focus myself on learning the lines. And I just kind of go over them. I also got taught this technique of like, once I've sort of somewhat know them, to really get it to that deeper level of knowing, I'll move about my space and stop and start based on punctuation, so that I'm getting to also know like the feeling of like the energy of the line, of why they're pausing there or why they're not. And I just try to run the lines by rote, like not with any intention or idea, as much as I can. I'm a bit of I don't mess around with lines. Like I have nightmares of not knowing my lines. Like genuinely, like I hate the idea of forgetting my lines. So I'll do them washing up. I'll do them if we're in LA. I'll do them on Runyon Canyon hike. Like, running,
everyone else thinks it's crazy. People walking up and down talking to themselves. No, it's just actors running lines.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I do that all the time. I realize that I look like I'm talking to myself all the time, but I'm just like running my lines, even in London.
For anyone that doesn't know, Runyon Canyon is a hike in Hollywood that all the actors go on, and you'll see people fully dressed up there. You'll see people running lines. You'll see celebrities. It's crazy.
I always go there every time I come and say hello to Darren. I'm always like, "Can we do Runyon? Can we do a Runyon in the morning?" It's one of my favorite. I went there 20 years ago. It's inspiring, looking out over the city and just going, "Well, that is Hollywood." Yeah. And when you're 20 years old and you look at that, you go, everyone, all the movies that I've ever seen have been made by people who are in front of me now, or who have has aspirations like me, and they're now working in this city and not necessarily making the stuff here, but they've been here and they've looked at this view. It's quite
inspiring, isn't it? And I've ran past people making the movies, like Matthew McConaughey, or ran into Serena Williams up there. That's inspiring itself. People that you respect that are doing big things, and you're like, hey, champ. Hey champ. What it says to me is just that, not like they're just like us, but they're at that moment, their morning is like mine. They're doing the same thing at the same time, and that just gives me inspiration. That means that the next thing that they do, I can also do. It just keeps me going. Have you
like anything's possible when you're in LA? Like it does have that energy of like, oh my God. Everything's up for grabs, whether it's true or not. It has that feeling, especially point on Runyon Canyon, Richard. I know exactly what you're talking about. When I first went there, I think I've got a photo when I first went there.
Yeah. There should be like a documentary one day of all the people whose photos were at Runyon Canyon with like the scrapbook.
What it means to them.
Have you ever used WeAudition to run your lines?
Yes, but I'm more of a recent WeAudition user, especially because my fiance, is based in Vancouver. And so when we're together, when we're in the same place, there's never really a need for me to ask anyone else for help because we're both actors, so we can run lines with each other. But we've been apart quite a lot, and so I've really found like, oh, what do I do? Like, and that's when this year I've really like, okay, I signed up for WeAudition and like have been really. I think I signed up a few years ago, but then lost the need for it because of being with an actor. And then now, this year when we've been apart, I've really found it to be kind of like, oh my gosh, how have I not used this more? Like when I've been in need. So it's so good. And it also seems like such a lovely, like, community of people. Like people are always so lovely on there. I've never met anyone on there that's like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a really nice energy and like wants everyone to succeed.
Well, it's based on community. Like, I mean, that's why it works, because it is an exchange of ideas and of talent and everything else. And it's like, we're all coming up. Do you ever use it to help other people out on there? Like, do you like coaching actors?
Yeah.
Or like being the reader?
I've been being the reader, which I'm really liking. It's really fun to see like how other people like to approach things. And I think it's also good for the actor brain to see like, wow, like people, I didn't read that like that, but they read that like that. Like to see how other people bring their interpretation to things, I think is really interesting. And I've gotten the chance to be in the room once for an audition where I was just sitting watching an audition process, and I found that fascinating, of just seeing like what the same sides, same scenes, and each person brings such a different energy. So I feel like I've seen that a bit with WeAudition. Not that it was the same sides, but just seeing like when I would skim the sides and be like, oh, how will this be? And then being their reader and seeing like, oh, wow, they really brought themselves to that.
It's fascinating, isn't it? When you were in the room, were you casting, or were you part of a show that your opinion mattered, or why was you in the room?
I was just the casting director was just being nice and letting me kind of witness a part of the industry that I wanted to get to see, and I tried to be as kind of like un there as I could be.
Did it change your opinion of the whole thing? Because I know when I did a casting session when I first directed, it completely changed my mind about what, the process and what we look for. Yeah,
it definitely made me see that, don't try to kind of like figure out what they want. Just come in and do your interpretation and bring yourself. And either that's what they're looking for or it's not. And I was really amazed to see also how actually, to be honest, how quite quickly when someone walks in the room, like the energy that they walk in the room with, how that does impact your perception of whether they're right for the role. For me, I found, what did you find with your experience, Darren?
That's, firstly, it's really obvious when the right person walks in. In a couple of ways, it fits, and this actors might not like to hear this, but the script I'm talking about, I wrote and directed. So I wrote it with an idea in mind. I had pictures of my characters in my head. So when, and that's what you cast them. And then when the person walks in and you just want them to be great because they fit your vision. And then the next thing I noticed was their energy. And I don't mean that in a word they nice or whatever. The way they hold their body, the way they move, again, it fit your vision. And then you're like, just please be a good actor, please. And then when they are, you go, bam, that's it. So it's sort of this 3-step process. And then there's a friend of mine that came in, and those first two bits were perfect. She fit the vision. That's why I invited her to audition. She fit the vision. I knew her like essence was right. Then it's a shame she got very nervous, which she shouldn't do because she's a good actress. Not she shouldn't do, but she didn't need to be nervous in that situation. And she actually asked me to step out the room because she's like, I can't do this in front of you. And I thought at that point, I'm like, I don't care how good the tape is. You're going to have to do it in front of me on the day. And it was a shame because, you know, she's good at it, but I'm like, that's going to be difficult. We're, you know, it was a pretty high budget for a short, but it's still a short. So we were on a tight schedule and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought that, and so that was one of those logistical things of, at that point, it didn't work because I'm like, if I have that once on set, then it's going to ruin things. Yeah. So it showed me the little things you can do that are outside the control of your look or your acting or whatever, you know. And then there were some people that it was little things that you just think, just you either like having too much conversation or you know, there was one person that kept on doing this, like smacking their chest, but they had a mic on. We mic'd them. And I looked at it and I thought technically you don't understand what's going on in a set. You wouldn't do that if and so there's those little things. I'm thinking it's a whole picture. It's not just being a good actor. That's part of it.
Yeah.
That's why I learned is this whole 360 thing. But then, you know, as an actor myself, going back in rooms after that, what I really learned is just bring my essence to the character. Like you said, do your version and don't care about what they think, because you're going to be right, you're going to be wrong, or not wrong, but not the one. And when that happens, I think the person that, you know, I don't blame the director. And I actually usually, when I watch something that I'm not in, that I see the role I was in, I actually think, yeah, they were right for that. They did that well. And when the stuff I've done, I'm like, I was right for that. I was bang on for that.
Yeah.
I think it's good for the mental health.
Yeah, exactly. It keeps you sane.
Yeah. All of the nice, successful actors I know never go, that person was wrong for that. I could have done that. I never hear that from the successful ones.
Yeah, I've never heard people. Yeah. I feel like that's just not helpful. It's just not helpful to put your energy into into that. It's just not.
You've worked with a lot of successful actors, like you said earlier, Jamie Foxx, Cameron Diaz, all these people. Do you find that successful, the people at the top, are they nice or are they not nice?
I've had mostly, I'd say 90% really great experiences. And that, you know, that Jamie Foxx, Cameron Diaz was this beginning of last year. That was probably my first time working with people on like that level. And with Andrew Scott is who I did most of my scenes with. He was amazing. And
he's Oscar nominated now, isn't he? Yeah.
So Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx, I got to witness them in the table read. That was fascinating as well. Just seeing like, wow, like that's why they're movie stars. Like they just talking about bringing your essence. They brought their essence even at the table read. It was like I really saw. I was like, oh, that's what a movie star is. Like they're really effing good actors, and they just bring this energy and this vibe. Even at the table read, I was just in awe. I only got to do like one actual scene with them on the film, but yeah. So anyway, that was my first time working with people at that level, and amazing, professional, lovely. Both of them, when they walked into the table read, shook hands with every single person around the table. They didn't have to do that. I've only worked with one person who I would describe as like they were horrible to work with, and it's just so I don't like it. I don't like being around that energy, and it upsets me because I don't like seeing other people being treated badly. And then I think the whole dynamic of like hierarchies on set kind of come into play.
Yeah.
And, like, you can speak up, and it's just not good. But I've mostly had really wonderful experiences, and that people have really shown me, oh, if I ever get to the point of being number one on a call sheet and leading a show, that's how you do it, you know?
Not if you ever, when you do.
One day.
I'm confident of it. I've seen your career rise. I'm confident of it. But I was going to say, do you think you can learn to be a movie star, or is it inherent?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like the idea of learning to be would be, I don't know. I think sometimes you can smell when people are trying to fake something. I suppose it depends what we mean by
I'm thinking more like you can absorb, you can learn lessons from these people you've worked with and absorb and emulate's probably a better word, because I always like to think, well, if you want to be somewhere, I look at what are they doing? How do they live their life? What they, little things like you hear certain successful people wake up very early. It's very common amongst all people. So you start to take these little bits and go emulate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Then in that case, I think you can learn how to be a good leader for sure. I mean, obviously it comes maybe more easily for other people, because at the end of the day, the number one on the call sheet is a leader on the set, them and the director and the producers. But they are the energy that the number one steps onto the set with, or the leads step onto the set with, affects everyone. I feel like we've all been on sets where the number one steps on and is not welcoming, doesn't introduce himself and say hello to the day players or the other actors, is rude to the crew. It has a trickle down effect. So I feel like you can also learn by seeing what not to do. You can see like, oh, if or when I ever get there, that's not how to do it.
Backing that up though, I have been on a project when I did have a bad experience on set, but when I watched the movie back, I was like, oh, there was so much hanging on your shoulders. I realized how much actually there was. And on that day, there must have been a lot in your mind because of the lines, because of the stress, because of lots of stuff going on. And actually on the day, I was like, oh, that's weird. They're not a very nice person. But actually, they probably didn't even recognize I was there because they had so much going on in their mind, so much to do. So there is a lot on people's shoulders when they're leading a show.
That's really true. And I think that's important distinction to make. There's a difference between someone who is just focused and needs to focus and not kind of expend their energy on niceties, and then people who are kind of like actively giving off horrible energy or being rude. Right. You've got to understand that people have a lot going on and they're trying to do a good job, and that's just, it is what it is.
And as actors, when we go to a set, if we're playing that day player role, whatever, we need to be cognizant of that. Be nice to the person you're working with. Don't try and wrap them up in banal conversation about things. Don't ask them if you can introduce them to your agent and all that stuff. You're there to do a job. Be nice, be professional, get on with it, and then, hopefully they'll remember you as a good experience versus one that took their energy away. Yeah. Well, Fola, thank you for bringing your amazing essence and energy to the WeAudition Show. We should wrap this up because I know we've taken a lot of your time. But it's been so good to have you here.
Thank you, Fola. I really appreciate you coming here and telling us your journey and your thoughts of set, and asking us questions as well, which is really nice.
And just dropping, there's so much knowledge here and so much, we've got to glean from it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Look, I'm still figuring it out and trying to just put one foot in front of the other. So everything I've said here today is only just from my experience and my cobbled together idea of the world. But thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're doing all right with it. So I think we should take that advice. What can we see you in next?
So Back in Action will be out in November of this year.
That's the Jamie Foxx one.
Yes, yeah.
Cameron Diaz, Netflix. Back in Action. And where are we going to see that? Netflix?
Netflix, yeah.
Amazing. We'll all be watching. Thank you so much, Fola.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fola. Thanks for listening to the WeAudition Show. Your hosts were Darren Darnborough and me, Richard Cambridge, from WeAudition, the leading professional actors community where you can connect, learn, elevate your career, and always get a self-tape reader on demand. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're a WeAudition member, or even if you're not, we would love it if you could please subscribe to this podcast, as it really helps us. And if you have friends who might get value from this episode, please share the link with them. You can find us at weaudition.com or for your iPhone or iPad by searching WeAudition on the App Store. See you next time.